PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli, and welcome to a fantastic edition of this show. This is episode 69 here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. Go to our website, sportsangle.com. Check out all the content we have on there. I wrote an article recently about the Portland Trailblazers and why they need to rebuild now and not just wait for the inevitable to happen. So go check out that article on sportsangle.com. Also upload all our shows to our website. So if you don't catch it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the sites we send it to, we have it on our website as well. And for all audio listeners on iHeartRadio and Spotify and all the platforms we share this show to, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on notifications to not miss any episode of The Sports Angle. And follow me on social media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli, at Ian Rickelli18, and follow the show at Sports Angle on PR. And because we're talking about the MLB trade deadline, of course, we got to bring on an expert, someone who's very knowledgeable about the world of baseball. So it's good to have you back. King Czar from Stay Tuned Live, Talk Your Ish Tuesday. Welcome back to Stay Tuned. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, what's up, man? Good to be back. You know what I mean? Yeah, this has been a crazy trade deadline. Obviously, a lot of movement, especially particular teams or surprises, but we kind of knew once it got to that point it was going to happen. So definitely got to get into it.
Now, we are going to start by going to the NL West, and really one of the teams that definitely made a mark was the Arizona Diamondbacks. And what really made them special was the fact that they bought and sold at the exact same time, trading away the Sheriff, Andrew Chafin, to Milwaukee, them also sending down Diego Castillo to Reno out there in AAA. But who they gained was very important out there in Arizona, with them only being a few games out of the wild card. Them getting Tommy Pham from the New York Mets, really good outfielder, somebody you would know very well, Czar. Also getting a solid closer from Seattle, someone you also would know as well, and a person who's very familiar to the city of Las Vegas, and Paul Sewald, and a second baseman in Jace Peterson out there in Oakland. So, Czar, when it comes to the Arizona Diamondbacks, what really got your attention about them at this trade deadline? Because, like I said, they bought, but at the same time, they also sold as well.
Well, I'm a big fan of Peterson, and I'm glad to see him get out of Oakland because, obviously we don't really need to get into the Oakland A's, but, that's a waste of talent over there. And so I think he definitely is going to add a spark to that team. Tommy Pham has been in the playoffs. He's been in big games. He's a veteran. They got probably the rookie of the year in the outfield with them, and Corral. Sewald is a shutdown closer, that I know. So the fact, even though, Diego Castillo was a hard thrower, Sewald, huge upgrade for that bullpen. They were kind of doing, not necessarily by committee, what I think they had lost a reliever, and then
then they had Mark Lanson too,
right? They and he was terrible last year, so I knew coming into this year, I was shocked that they didn't address it earlier, especially the start that they had, and I guess they didn't know that they were going to have a start like that. But yeah, that solidifies the end of that bullpen. So Pham I love, but like I said, Sewald and Peterson. Peterson should help now and be a really viable piece for the future as well.
And with Arizona, do you think that it is a possibility that they could be a wild card team? Because I did mention earlier in the year that I had them at 88 wins, being the last wild card in the National League, but they have been streaking backwards as the last month. So
right.
I will say for Arizona, what do you see moving forward?
Yeah, that was your squad. I mean, they were making you look very good earlier this year. They were even looking better than you thought. They were in first, for a while. They were,
yeah.
But who should I say? Like Tampa, even though they're right there. But there's teams that we know we're going to come back down to reality. The Miami Marlins, teams that got off to a good start. So the thing with them is because of their rotation, Getting Merle Kelly back was a big thing, and that also hurt them, and maybe have been a part to why they started falling, because he is definitely their second best starter. So
outside of Zach Allen.
right. So, I think they're right there. You got this. I still think they could jump the Giants, and I know it's just late, and I know I'm not a Giants guy, but I'm not gonna say I don't believe in the Giants because they got a lot of good vets over there. But if you were asking me to choose who's going to come in second in that division, I'm going to pick the Diamondbacks. The teams that I have for sure making the wild card, I think is there 3 wild cards?
3, yeah.
Philadelphia will get one, unfortunately. Philadelphia will get one. Shout out to Dennis Holmes. Miami will not get one. I still have Milwaukee winning that division. Sorry, Ian. I'm going to pick the Reds to get one. And then, I actually think it is going to come down to the Giants and the Diamondbacks, and I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks getting that last spot.
Now, there also is a team in the NL West that we are going to talk about in a little bit that has actually been gaining momentum as of late, but we'll talk about them later in this, later on. Now, since we're talking about the NL West, we have to mention a team that's sold, and I mean sold hard, at a trade deadline. Of course, I'm talking about the Colorado Rockies. I mean, this is a team that definitely, they've definitely made some progress when it comes to that organization. And I will say, when it mentions the Colorado Rockies, I mean, yes, they did get some good pitching, some young up-and-coming pitchers in these trades, but mostly what's going to matter is who they gave up, giving up a solid reliever in Brad Hand, helping out the Atlanta Braves on that front, getting Pierce Johnson, him going to Atlanta as well as a 2-for-1 in terms of relievers, getting CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk out there to the Anaheim Angels. So what do you think about the Colorado Rockies? Yes, everyone expected them to be sellers at the deadline, but they did get some good pitchers back with the deals that they made.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what you do in that position. And, good to see Cron going back home. I believe he was there before.
And Grichuk too.
Yeah. Grichuk, I'm not a huge fan. I've watched him in Toronto. He is one of those hot, cold. And he's been hot lately, so it looks like it's a heck of a pickup. Maybe hitting in a better offense with Ohtani. Trout, is he coming back or what?
He's supposed to be back within the next week or two.
Yeah, so, if you can get your full squad back, obviously when you hit in front of better guys, you see better pitches. The fact that he's playing hot right now, maybe he can carry that over. But I'm really rooting for I know we're talking about Colorado, but since, the team that they get the bulk of this trade is Anaheim, I'm rooting for them, man, for, 2 reasons. And we know the 2 guys why I want to see them do some things. But Colorado's got a lot of work to do, though. A lot of work, but a decent – I would say this is a decent turnaround from what they gave up.
Yeah, Colorado Rockies, look, this is just an organization that outside of 2007, there really hasn't been much to talk about positively about Colorado, even when they got guys like Chris Bryant, even Jackson Profar. I mean, there really are some good talent in Colorado, but it's just not that much.
Right.
Now, as we're moving over in the NL West, of course, we are going to talk about the team leading the NL West, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, this is a team that went for it. In fact, I can't even put everybody that they added at the trade deadline. But Lance Lynn, Joe Kelly, with Joe Kelly coming back to the Dodgers, he was there previously. Lance Lynn, a veteran arm the Dodgers are going to have in the middle of their rotation. They brought back Kiki Hernandez from the Boston Red Sox and made a solid and underrated move getting Ahmed Rosario from Cleveland. So, when it comes to Los Angeles Dodgers, this is a team that everyone expected to be contenders at the beginning of the year. In fact, they were actually the front runner in the National League to begin the year. But what do you think, Czar? When it comes to Los Angeles Dodgers, it feels like the rich just got richer.
Yeah, on paper, I'm gonna be honest with you, Ian. I'm not impressed. I do not feel good about them when the playoffs start. I think they win this division. I think Lance Lynn is spent personally. Joe Kelly, okay. I like it a little bit. They need starters. That's not going to help. I mean, Enrique Hernandez, welcome back, I guess. I mean, he was there when they're,
back 2020.
A good utility player. Do they have enough of those? I mean, it's like log jammed over there with Chris Taylor and Miguel Rojas. They just got, who did they get like a few days earlier? Well, I guess Ahmad Rosario, another one log jammed over there. There's another player over there that's similar to all those same positions, but you're right. Syndergaard is done. Shot. He couldn't even make it in Philly. He couldn't make it in Anaheim.
Yeah, he's in the minors.
I know all about Syndergaard. I am not impressed. I hear you. Rich gets richer because you add about 5 or 6 veterans. For the Dodgers and what they're trying to do is win a World Series. For who they lost, Kershaw, I believe, got hurt. I don't think this is going to get it done. I think once they playoffs start, once they see the Phillies, the Braves,
is it going to be a wild card or NLDS?
No, they'll win their division. I believe they have because they're a good enough team. But I think once they get there, they see either the Braves, they see anyone out of the East, and put in it. Shoot, that's probably it. I think you want to avoid the Phillies and Braves. I can see them beating, whoever comes, the Reds or the Brewers. I can see them get past those teams.
Maybe the Cubs. There
you go.
But yeah, with the Dodgers, I mean, look, we all knew that they were going to win. We all know the Dodgers were going to try to get people at the trade deadline. But there was one trade that didn't happen that involved the Los Angeles Dodgers that we need to talk about because it was really odd and really strange. So there was a deal done pretty much in place with Detroit and Los Angeles. Eduardo Rodriguez, he was going to be going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers were going to be giving up 2 prospects. It was pretty much a done deal. But then Eduardo Rodriguez used his 10-team no-trade clause and blocked the deal. Now, they reached out to him. He said it wasn't anything personal. It was nothing against LA. But like a true PR person, because a lot of these guys are media trained, he really didn't answer the question as to why he didn't want to go to LA. Now, Czar, I have my idea on why he didn't want to go, but what about you? I mean, really odd, the fact that he used his no-trade clause to not want to go to the Dodgers.
No, honestly, I don't know. I didn't really look into it. Usually, if it's okay. When you're on a team like Detroit and you have a chance to go to a team like LA and you choose not to, it's usually personal. So my only things is I don't know exactly. Well, I'm sure he's from overseas, but I don't know like ties. It's either it's the area, he likes the area, family. It's either he's established in this area. I don't think it's anything negative to do with the Dodgers, but if you know something I don't, then you can let me know.
The reason why I believe that he did it is probably due to family. I think that there was probably something family related, and because he has family and everything, I think that's probably why he didn't want to move from Detroit to LA. That's just my idea. It had to be something family related.
Okay. I can see that. I can definitely see that.
So, as we are doing our 2023 MLB trade deadline review here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. We're here with King Czar, the legend of Stay Tuned Live, and Talk Your-ish Tuesdays. And as we are staying with the NL West, of course, we got to go with the team that surprised everybody, and I mean everybody, and that was the San Diego Padres. This was a team that was 4 games under 500, and they decided to go for it. They decided to try to be buyers at the trade deadline, and it really surprised a lot of people. The fact that the San Diego Padres went for it and actually tried to win at the trade deadline. As you can see, they were big spenders at the trade deadline. They went and got an old Rich Hill. That's not really the reason what I'm talking about, but they got, G-Man Choi from Pittsburgh. They went and got a solid reliever and Scott Barlow. They acquire a good first baseman and Garrett Cooper, add some more relievers and Sean Reynolds. When it comes to San Diego, it's very weird to say, but they didn't sell. despite being 4 games under 500. Despite all the expectations and everything that's going on this offseason, San Diego decided to buy instead of sell. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. San Diego has been on a winning streak as of late. They've actually been winning 7 of the last 9 games. San Diego's done very well. But Czar, is it a situation where San Diego and more importantly AJ Preller was pretty much fighting for his job? Like the general manager knew that, hey, I'm probably going to get fired at the end of the year, so I have to make sure we try to make the playoffs to make sure I keep my job.
Hey, they're pretty much in the same position we were. They went one way, we kind of went another way. So I tell you what, if they don't make it, good luck to that organization. But again, yes, they were buyers, but what did they buy? I'm not impressed. If you're gonna, Choi is solid. Rich Hill, is not gonna do anything for me, in my opinion. Choi is a solid pickup. Barlow, is on again, off again closer. He's got opportunities to close, and he never holds it down. Mm-hmm. Garrett Cooper is very inconsistent, hitting the ball. And Sean, this you're not going to make the playoffs with this. If they make the playoffs, it's going to be for that second or third highest payroll that they have. That's finally kicked in and kicking some butt. It ain't going to be these guys.
It's going to be because Xander Bogaerts, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, guys like that.
Tatis, yeah.
Tatis, yeah, him too.
Yeah.
But I just think it surprised a lot of people that San Diego on August 1st decided to buy at the trade deadline. They didn't do a Mets. They didn't do what all these other teams that were under 500 were doing. They decided to buy. To me, it kind of felt like the Pittsburgh Pirates back in 2019 when they were like a few games under 500, but they sold Chris Archer and tried to bring in a bunch of this talent into Pittsburgh, and it backfired on them horribly. So I will say with San Diego, very surprising to see them make all these moves. Now, do you see them making a run in August and September? Do you think it's possible that San Diego keeps up their momentum and makes a wild card spot?
I don't. I don't. I think they miss. They're not. I wouldn't give them one of the wild card spots. I don't think they surpassed the Arizona or the Giants. Honestly, they don't surpass Philadelphia. I think, like I said, I think Miami is going to kind of. I don't want to say free fall. They made a nice move. We'll get to them. And again, that Central is weird because, I know you keep throwing your Cubs in there. They're playing better. But Milwaukee and Cincinnati, those are like X Factor teams, weird teams. So they both may make it. So it's a lot of teams. San Diego's got their work cut out for them.
And as we are continuing with the NL West, we're actually going to be wrapping up with Josh Bailey's team. We're talking about the San Francisco Giants, and man, what a team they have been this year. They really have done a lot better and actually have done more than a lot of people expected them to. Well, the San Francisco Giants, they made small moves at the trade deadline, very minor moves, nothing really that's going to tip the scale, but them getting Mike Yastrzemski back from the IR, I think that's going to be very valuable for them. Of course, they had to send Estrada and Luciano down to Sacramento, but AJ Pollock, Mark Mateus, him coming over from Seattle. I like what San Francisco has done. They made some very small moves. They're trying to make a playoff push. So what do you think, Czar?
Yeah, this is typical Giants. These guys fit like their roster. Like savvy, kind of overlooked veteran, AJ Pollock. He's helped the Dodgers win. He's helped he's going to Arizona. Yeah. Matthias, same thing, and getting Mike back. But I'm gonna tell you that outfield is log jam. They got to figure that out because I love Lamonte Wade and I like Jock Peterson. I hope they continue to play those two guys for sure. I know it's a lefty righty thing with both of them, probably, so it'll be a matchup thing. But Estrada was a pretty solid player. I guess he started struggling, but definitely not a big fan of Luciano. Yeah. But this is typical Giants baseball right here, what we're seeing.
And it's really going to come down to Arizona and San Francisco. And like I said, unless San Diego makes, a Hail Mary of a push in August and September, I think San Francisco and Arizona, those will be the two teams battling it out in the NL West and for the NL wild card. But, do you think any of these teams in the NL West really won the trade deadline? Would you consider any of them a winner at the trade deadline? Or was it kind of just, they made a few moves. Now we're going to see what they can do.
No, I don't. None of these teams won anything. No, okay. Not in my opinion.
Now, moving over to the American League West, and of course, we're going to keep the same colors, but the Houston Astros, they're a team that definitely bought at the trade deadline. They want to win another World Series, and the way they have done this is definitely by adding Justin Verlander, bringing him back to Houston from the New York Mets. Of course, they added some relievers in Kendall Graveman and Jake Cousins. They had to give up a really good up-and-coming outfielder in Drew Gilbert, and they had to bring over some really good players as well. But when it comes to the Houston Astros, I like the moves they made. They want to win another World Series. They want to go back to the World Series. But my question is, have they done enough? Like, Czar, with these moves, does this get Houston back to the World Series, or does this get them to the ALCS at best?
Yeah, no, I mean, Verlander is huge, I mean, he was their best pitcher when they won the World Series, obviously. So they don't need much. They had a slow start. Now they're right there with Texas. Graveman, solid bullpen guy. But yeah, I love that Drew Gilbert. I appreciate that. So look out for him. But yeah, Houston will be right there in the mix. Their team is pretty much what they have. Verlander, you add him with Framber, they got Hunter Brown, Luis Garcia,
Jose Urquidy.
Yeah, so they're pretty much entrenched. But obviously getting a stud ace who helped you just win the World Series the previous year, he's already comfortable there. That was what I think was the big deal in this trade.
And don't forget who they have as one of the best outfielders / designated hitters in MLB, and Yordan Alvarez. Definitely one of the best players in baseball.
Right.
So definitely good to have him there. Now, as we are going to continue with the AL West, we're going to move over to the Anaheim Angels. And the Anaheim Angels, they did something that a lot of people did not expect, but was something necessary, and that was buying at the trade deadline, not wasting the final few months of Shohei Ohtani, and they went out and made some good moves, getting Lucas Giolito from the Chicago White Sox, a guy from Orange County, someone who's very familiar with California, them getting Dominique Leone from the New York Mets, also getting CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk from the Colorado Rockies. So when it comes to the Anaheim Angels, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. But Czar, do you see these moves as enough of a factor for Shohei Ohtani and for eventually Mike Trout to come back and be a wild card team in the American League?
Not really. Lucas Giolito is very too inconsistent. He was once probably, I don't know if he was the best prospect in baseball, but yeah. And then the first 2-3 years with the White Sox, he was terrible. And then right when they were about to move on from him, he has a Cy Young type season, and then he's like, oh, he's arrived. And then he goes right back down to the depths again. So, we talked about Cron and Grichuk, solid additions. Anaheim, it's about quality. You need a pitcher behind Ohtani. They got the offense is not good enough, but it's there. If Trout is healthy, they can score runs. Their problem has always been pitching, bullpen, even though they got a good closer. It's always been starting pitching, in my opinion.
And when it comes to the Angels, everyone keeps saying, will they be the first team to pay over $100 million for two players? Like, there's an idea that they will re-sign Ohtani. Because, yes, it is true that Ohtani does like Anaheim. He has said that he kind of does favor the city of Anaheim, Orange County. He likes the people there. He kind of likes the organization. But could the Anaheim Angels be the first team in MLB history to pay $100 million combined to two different players in Trout and Ohtani?
I mean, if they want to keep them, they will be. But it's not completely up to them. But I think they want to be. Yes, absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
Unfortunately, I don't see it. I mean, I don't really think they're going to actually do it. But if they decide to, if they really decide that it's worth taking that risk, hey, best to them. I hope them well. Now, as we are talking about the Anaheim Angels, of course, we got to talk about the Oakland Athletics. And this can really only be narrowed down to the fact that they are fire selling. The Oakland A's, one of the worst records in all of baseball. Yes, they have a bright future. They have some good up-and-coming assets. But when it comes to Oakland, it's really just about tearing down and selling everything. Chase Peterson, we already mentioned earlier, he gets to Arizona. They get a reliever, Sam Moll. He goes to Cincinnati. Really, this team is just focusing on building for the future. In 2 or 3 years, when they're playing here in Las Vegas, the sports entertainment capital of the world, the Oakland Athletics, all this talent that they got are eventually going to be here in Vegas. But, Czar, when it comes to a team like Oakland, was it about acquiring as many assets as possible in a trade like this, trying to get as many pitchers and as many prospects as they could for the talent they had on the roster?
Oh, yeah, that's always been the case. Even, when they were competitive, small ball, which we all know about that, money ball. So, in this case, if you look at the names that were sent, because a lot of their prospects are playing now, and a lot of them aren't really looking that great. A lot of guys are sent back down. But, yes, in Oakland's case, they're always looking for that diamond, that gem in the rock, like, you know what I mean? So, and like I said, over the time and over years, it's worked out. Not of recent. So, good luck. We'll see. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on. They may be moving, like Ian said. I don't know what this team is going to do, but it's a lot of turmoil, a lot of noise going on out there in Oakland.
And since they are going to be coming to Las Vegas, and I have said before that I do support the Oakland A's because our AAA team is here in Las Vegas, so I do support the Oakland A's. I wish them the best of luck. Czar, from an outsider's perspective, how many years do you think it would take for Oakland to be competitive again? Because we saw with Chapman, with Olsen, like when they had that great roster, they made it to the playoffs, I think 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row.
Right.
They had a sold-out house at the Oakland Coliseum. It was sold out for the divisional round.
Right.
Like, Oakland Athletics, they have a passionate fan base. I always give them credit there. But how many years do you think it will take for Oakland and Billy Beane to eventually become competitive again?
Man, I could throw a figure out there. If they're planning to move, you're talking, I say 5 years, bro. Like, it's a lot to transition. You're talking about a whole new area. Even though it's Las Vegas, it's not across the globe or whatever. It's not across the states, but I just don't see a lot of grade A, talent, especially in the rotations. All these guys, J.P. Sears, Capriacic, Blackburn is okay. I mean, he's kind of a little older.
What about Hogan Harris?
Yeah, see, I'm not feeling there to be where they are. They should have the #1 farm system, dude, and I'm not feeling it. So I don't know how bright the future is, to be honest with you, bro.
I mean, I'll say this, being here in Las Vegas and going to Aviators games, their pitching might not be that good, but man, they have a lot of talent in terms of hitting. With Butler, Soderstrom, Langiers, he came up last year. So I'll say hitting wise, they got a lot of talent. But yeah, pitching, I would agree.
Yeah, a little bit. Those hitters are inconsistent as well, and I know they're young. I would say they're definitely in better position with position, no pun intended, hitters. Starters, yeah, they got a lot of work to do, bro.
Absolutely. And by the way, Josh Bailey, look, they will always be rooted in Oakland, but in 2 or 3 years, they're going to be playing in Sin City. They'll be playing in the greatest city to ever exist. They'll
Right.
be playing in my
Hey, and
hometown.
don't be talking about Oakland and Jay Will and put you in the basement, bro.
Hey, I'm just
Cool.
letting you know they're going to be playing in the greatest city to ever exist, and that's my hometown, Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, moving over to Seattle, because obviously this is a team that made a lot of moves at the trade deadline, and kind of similar to what Arizona did on the NL side, they sold, but they bought at the same time. I mean, this is an organization that, yes, they gave up Paul Seawold. They also kind of gave up some players as well. But when it comes to the players they added back, getting relief pitchers and Bizardo and Thornton, and then having some infielders and Rojas and Canzone, I look at Seattle, and this is an organization that's kind of building from within, but they do have some question marks there. So for a team that made the playoffs last year, these moves impress you at all, or is this kind of just middle of the pack? They're going to finish around 500, and
Yeah.
Seattle's just going to be who they are.
They didn't have that. See, that's what I'm saying. You know, obviously, the Mets and Padres stole the the limelights based off why. But this team had high hopes going into this year, and they're not having the season they thought. You're coming off rookie of the year, Julio, Logan Gilbert,
bringing over Teoscar Hernandez,
Castillo. Yeah, like they are very disappointing. Just people are not talking about it because, like I said, there's a couple other teams that stole that limelight, so they've kind of been getting the pass. But this is very underwhelming to me, and just by the fact getting rid of Seawald lets you know they're not going anywhere. So you don't trade a closer like that if you think you're gonna make the playoffs.
Now, with them still being 3 games over 500, they still are in contention at this point. So despite a epic breakdown in August and September, are they going to be kind of around the 80 wins at the end of the year, or is it maybe a wild card team when everything's all said and done?
Nah, you got Tampa Bay, Baltimore, you got terrible Central, that's 3, and then you're gonna have Houston and Texas, so that's 5. I would definitely take whoever comes in third in the East over them, which I'm hoping that's Toronto. Boston is putting up a big fight as well. I don't think Seattle will make it.
And since you mentioned that team as one of the playoff contenders, they definitely bought like a playoff contender, a team who wants to win a World Series, and that is the Texas Rangers, one of the feel-good stories of MLB. Not only did they go out and get Mad Max from the New York Mets, but they also went out and got a reliever in Chris Stratton and getting a starting pitcher in Jordan Montgomery from St. Louis. And they even added to their catching, thanks to Jonah Heim being injured. They went and got Austin Hedges from Pittsburgh. And really the only thing they had to give up in terms of MLB level talent was Spencer Howard. He got sent over to the Yankees. So when it comes to Texas, they made some really solid moves at the trade deadline, one of the confirmed winners of this trade deadline. But is this enough to get them to a World Series, or is this just something that they're kind of building off of?
No, it's enough. You got to get it done. I believe the roster, they have enough on the roster, definitely, now that you added Scherzer. Losing to Grom was a big hit, so they do need to get Eovaldi back, who they say he should be back, when first eligible. But you have, a nice little 1-2 combo of him and Scherzer, offensive stack, so they definitely can put up run. I think they blasted Dylan Cease today. I think they put up 7 runs in
they did. First. Indeed, they did.
So, no, like I said, will they go? I don't know. So it's them, Houston. I mean, the AL is going to be tough. You got about 3 or 4 teams that could go, but they definitely have enough, and they definitely went out to put a stamp on it. Jordan Montgomery is a good middle of the pack starter as well.
Now, what would be the main reason that you would say for Texas's success? Because the last 2 or 3 years, they were kind of mid-pack, not really competing. But this year, they were just really taking off.
No, I just think it's, again, Eovaldi's, flashbacks showed, I think one year he came in second or third in the Cy Young. I mean, obviously, Adolis Garcia, if not an MVP candidate, he smashes the ball, and just getting better production, and obviously, management's better now. So, sometimes you got to pay your dues. You look at like Baltimore, like Toronto, like some of these teams, Miami. They've been building and building and building. They said we're going to go for it now. Let's get to grown. Let's bring in some people. So I just think when you want it and you've been in the middle, at some point you either going to stay in the middle, or you going to say, oh, this ain't working out. You're going to go down, or you're going to make that next step. And I just think they're making that next step, even though despite losing to grown.
And Texas is one of the 9 teams at MLB to have never won a World Series. So this is kind of going to be a 2-part question. Do you see them winning a World Series with this current roster? And if they did, when it comes to Texas Rangers, do you see them potentially doing what Houston has done, where they've had, a couple of years, they have a solid run in the AL West, or is this going to kind of be a 1-year, 2-year kind of thing?
Yeah, 1 year, 2 year type of thing. It's too many other teams on the rise, doing it a better way, better farm system, better on paper. You're talking about Baltimore is there now, so look out. Toronto, I'm a little slightly disappointed in them, but I still, you're talking over the next 5 whatever years, I definitely take in the Blue Jays. Houston, I mean, like you said, Houston is Houston. They're a juggernaut now. So, and even though I knocked Seattle, I still like what they have. I just think
they're a fun team to watch.
Yeah. So, no, I don't definitely see Texas becoming nothing special. I mean, they may be here or there, or DeGrom. Like I said, if DeGrom wouldn't get hurt, we may be talking different. You say they got DeGrom, and then you wouldn't get Scherzer, and you got Eovaldi, you know what I mean? So,
oh yeah, I understand. You mean DeGrom? He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's got to stay healthy.
Right. And so now with Tommy John, he won't even be. I don't even think he'll be ready next year. So
he'll be back in 2025.
Right.
Yeah. So as we were breaking down the West here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. We're here at King Czar for Stay Tuned Live and Talk Your Rich Tuesday. Now getting over to the east side of it, the Atlanta Braves, they actually made some solid moves at the trade deadline. Not really anything flashy, but solid. Getting Brad Hand and Pierce Johnson, 2 relievers from Colorado. Them calling up Kansas City, swapping one of their relievers and Tyler Hearn for Nicky Lopez, a solid middle infielder, someone who could be a utility guy. Now, with them adding all these guys, they had to send some people down. Sam Hilliard and A.J. Smith-Schuver, have him going down to AAA. But when it comes to the Atlanta Braves, they're obviously in World Series mode, one of the best teams in baseball. Now, I know they're in your division. You got to see them all the time. Both Atlanta, this trade deadline, it seems like they're really making a solid push to win a World Series. Anything about these moves stand out to you?
No, man. See, that's the luxury of Atlanta. You can't really make too many big moves. I mean, I guess starting pitching wise, but position, they don't have weaknesses. So we don't need to go grab a bat here or a hitter there, because you're probably not going to beat out the guy that's starting at that position. So yeah, that's as close as a complete team that you're gonna see, and it's very scary. And like I said, and they're in my division, so you're hearing it here. Yeah, this is exactly what I expected, because they're rolling. They don't need much. They said we're gonna do a little kink here, kink there, and we're good. We're not going to trade our prospects.
Are they the World Series favorites right now?
Oh, by a mile.
By a mile. Yes, King Czar says. I've been saying for a while that being unbiased, I think Baltimore versus Atlanta would be a really solid World Series. I think it'd be really good to see Baltimore versus Atlanta. I know there's people who want to see a rematch between Houston versus Atlanta. I know some people want that. But I think having Baltimore versus Atlanta would kind of be two really solid teams, both at certain points of time. But I think Baltimore and Atlanta. What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean it's solid. I mean, but I don't see it matching up with this team. Like, good luck. I don't care. Houston, Baltimore, Texas, Tampa Bay, who was, they were they were way out in front, but they don't match up with this team right here. Yeah, this World Series is going to be 4-1, no matter who they play. I'm calling it
just like the
I'm
NBA
calling,
Finals with
I'm
Miami
calling the
and
number of
Tampa.
games already, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we also have to break down the Miami Marlins, a team that kind of has gotten back down to reality after a fantastic start. But hey, they had the trade deadline. They made some solid moves as well, getting a reliever in David Robertson from the New York Mets, getting Jake Berger from the Chicago White Sox, and a first baseman in Josh Bell from Cleveland. I don't know why they had Ryan Weathers from San Diego on their shopping list, but they brought him over as well. Really, only move they had to make was send young 25-year-old Edward Cabrera down to Jacksonville to make some room. But for the Miami Marlins, what do you see about them? Because they made some moves, but I don't think it's enough for Miami long term.
No, and I like Cabrera too. He's gonna be a nice little young arm. No, it's just happening exactly how it should. Their progress. This team wasn't what they were doing earlier wasn't expected. Where they're at now, okay, like this team going into the year, so it should have been the hardest division you would have thought. Atlanta, the Mets, Phillies. So Marlins will come in fourth, maybe get lucky and sneak and maybe jump one of the three teams, and which is the Mets this year. So
Right.
I think it's just stages. This is perfect. They're going to finish probably over 500 or around 500. They definitely don't have a shot at making the playoffs, in my opinion.
But is this a team that's kind of trying to build for a year or two from now? Because every trade deadline, it seems like there's that team that's making trades not for this year, but the year after.
Right. And picking up Robertson, obviously he didn't want to leave either, which sucks. But
he didn't.
He loves New York, period, because he played with the Yankees. But yeah, no, I definitely see that. Now they just steep into bullpen. They had a decent closer, a guy that was closing before they even got Robertson. He was solid, but this obviously solidifies that position. Josh Bell, solid hitter. Jake Berger is up and coming, nice power hitter as well. But yeah, they're definitely trending in that direction. Kind of like what Baltimore was doing a couple years ago, and then see if they have the same result.
We definitely will have to wait and see on that. Now we do have to mention a certain team out there in New York, out there in Queens. And of course, that would be your New York Mets. Unfortunately, they traded actually more people than I could fit onto this banner, so I can't put all of them on there. But for your New York Mets, I kind of put the ones that mostly got attention onto this banner. When it comes to New York Mets, what really caught your eye as a Mets fan? The fact that, they had the highest payroll in baseball. Now at this trade deadline, they're selling off assets. So if you being the Mets fan, obviously, I'll let you take it from here. But what do you think as a Mets fan?
No, again, it's part of sports. There's always going to be teams that surprise, always going to be teams that disappoint. We're one of the teams that disappointed. But thankfully to the GM and owner that we have now, I don't know what we would have done with previous ownership and GMs. They handled this correctly. The farm system is now one of the best farm systems. They were talking about it earlier. They were ranking them. They have us in the top 5 now. So, and we still have a playoff potential baseball team as far as on paper. We didn't get rid of, in my opinion, our, best hitters, our futures, anyone that we felt in the future was going to be on our roster, which is why Scherzer and Verlander could leave. They're both over 40, both two of the highest, if not the two highest paid pitchers. It makes perfect sense. We're not making the playoffs. Let's get that money out. Let's go get these prospects. We can trade Pham and Canna, who platooned each other in the outfield anyway. So now, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I think it's been, for what it's worth, it's been handled very well. We still have our core players. And like I said, more importantly, now our farm system is on fire right now.
And I will mention that there was one trade call that did not happen. But as a Chicago Cubs fan, if you can make it happen this upcoming offseason, I would absolutely love if the Mets would want to pull the trigger on it. Of course, we heard the report come out that the New York Mets, they did receive phone calls regarding first baseman Pete Alonso, what his availability was in terms of the trade market. Now, as a Mets fan, what do you think the probability is that Pete Alonso gets traded, not on the trade deadline, obviously, but at the off season, that Pete Alonso goes somewhere else?
No, zero. I actually, like I said, I think once the offseason gets here, it's business as usual. We will be buying again. I wouldn't be shocked if we have the best offseason. I know my owner. I know what we plan on doing next year. So, zero.
Yeah, I say 50-50. You know, I'm going to flip a coin. You know, if heads, he goes, tails, he stays. So. Now, as we are continuing with the NL East, now this was a team that made solid moves. I'm not going to say it did any great moves, but they made some solid moves. And of course, I'm talking about the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, this is an organization that really had to bring in an all-star, Michael Lorenzen from Detroit. They got Castro, the shortstop from Pittsburgh. Of course, they had to trade Bailey Felter out there to Pittsburgh to make that happen. Now, with Philadelphia, they're going to be a wild card team. They're going to be one of those teams competing in October. But this really just felt like depth pieces. Like, Philadelphia really didn't have to make any major splashes. They just had to add one or two small pieces to make that team work.
Yeah, definitely Michael Lorenzen was the best and most needed piece. That is where they're lacking, is starting pitching, and I think that is what's going to be their downfall. Yeah, the lineup is crazy. So definitely need to bring in a real at bat. So Rodolfo will be a good little utility guy, backing up Baum, Stotts, and those type of guys over there. But I'm interested in seeing what Lorenzen does. He makes his debut tomorrow, so definitely be interested.
And to round out the NL East, we got to talk about the Washington Nationals, the Walgreens logo itself, the Washington Nationals. Now, they did add some players like Robert Garcia. They've got a reliever out there in Miami. And then they got Kevin Made in the deal with Jameer Candelario. Now, them losing Victor Robles to the IR, that is interesting. But, hey, this is a team that was already in the dump. So having him being lost to IR, that just means more games are going to be lost to them. But when it comes to Washington, it's kind of unfortunate seeing what happened with them in 2018, 2019. They were at the top of the mountain. They're one of the best teams in baseball. Now, about 4 years later, they're one of the worst teams in baseball. So, I mean, is this pretty much full rebuild mode for Washington? I mean, Victor Robles, is he going to get traded this offseason, pretty much finish out that rebuild?
Yeah, Victor Robles is a bust. He never lived up to his hype. He was actually rated higher than Juan Soto at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're starting from scratch. That started last year with the Juan Soto trade, obviously, and Trey Turner. Good young players. CJ Abrams, Ruiz, the catcher. Good young talent.
Lane Thomas out there in the outfield.
Yeah, no pitching though. So it's going to be a long road back for the Nationals, unfortunately.
And as we are doing our 2023 MLB trade deadline review here on Sports Angle, I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. We're here with King Czar from Stay Tuned Live and Talk Your Ish Tuesday. Now, the team that has the best record in the American League, the Baltimore Orioles, I mean, them getting Jack Flaherty from the St. Louis Cardinals, that was a solid move. And really, outside of giving up Bizzardo to Seattle, sending some people down to AAA, I mean, Baltimore really didn't make any splash moves, but I feel like they made some small upgrades at the trade deadline. And for a Baltimore team that has a lot of good up-and-coming talent, I kind of look at them and say, you know what? This is a roster that has some potential. They have a chance to make it to a World Series, so they had to go get a number 2 in Jack Flaherty. Czar, what was your opinion on Baltimore? They really didn't make that many moves, but they made one important one.
Yeah, I was still, man, this Tyler Wells, I tell you, this stuff is weird, man. Tyler Wells was, man, putting in work, and then I saw he got sent down, and I saw his last 3 games, and I'm like, this dude was having a good year. He's going to be very important that he works out whatever he got to work out to come back, because I haven't looked at the rotation, but he has to either be their best or second best starter, especially up until the last 2 or 3 starts.
ERA, he's the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's huge. Now, Jack Flaherty was a once upon a time a top prospect and the potential ace of the Cardinals. Obviously, injury after injury, he's kind of been a has-been type deal. Like, there's no expectations from this kid. So this team is doing what they're doing off of what they built from in home. If Flaherty can help, cool. I don't expect a ton from him, to be honest with you. But I just believe what they already have ingrown, the lineup is fire. You know, just continue to do what you guys are doing. That's why you didn't make a big splash. You built the talent from scratch. Tyler Wells needs to come back, though.
And the Boston Red Sox, they're a team that definitely has to be mentioned. I mean, they are in contention mode. I mean, they are a team that definitely is trying to make some moves. But Luis Urias getting brought over from Milwaukee, them getting Lou Riera from San Francisco, now them trading Kiki Hernandez back to the LA Dodgers, not really that big of a move, just kind of a minor move there. And them getting a veteran catcher in Alfaro out there, former Philly, former Marlin. Now he is signed as a free agent with Boston. But with the Boston Red Sox, what do these moves really tell you when it comes to the Boston Red Sox? Because to me, it really feels like they're an organization who's kind of in limbo right now. Like, they're not really going to be contending, but they're not really in a rebuild either. It's just kind of in a weird transition period.
Well, they didn't expect to be this good. So, again, that's the beauty of baseball. You know, you look at the Mets and Padres, we're about to go do this. Mm-hmm. Boston, you know, JD Martinez gone, you know, where a lot of vets are, you know, we're going to keep Devers, of course, Devers. Mm-hmm. But no one expected them to do what they're doing. So when this happens, you're like, oh, hey, we got a shot at this thing. So what do we do? And none of this impresses me. I kind of like what they're doing because it's like you just said, are they still buying that they can keep this up? We're not going to sell because we have a shot, but we're not going to go all in and trade our prospects and yada, yada, yada. So I think this is perfectly fine. If they can continue to do what they do, if not, there's no harm done. Did no one expect them to compete and keep it moving?
And somebody mentioned this, so I'm going to point this out. The Boston Red Sox this year have been sending veterans back to AAA, like, constantly. Corey Kluber went to AAA. Trevor Story went to AAA. I think there was also another veteran, maybe James Paxton, maybe he went to AAA. Chris Sale, now he going to AAA. Even Reese McGuire, I think he went to AAA too. When it comes to the Boston Red Sox, I mean, is that just something that they're known for doing? Like, if there's a veteran that needs to go get some reps in minor leagues or something like that, I mean, what's the deal there?
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of our greater organizations. You know, we rank organizations in all the sports, which we do sometime offline. I'm definitely putting the Red Sox in the top 5. So yeah, they know what they're doing.
All right. And as we are staying with the AL East, we mentioned Baltimore, we mentioned Boston. Now we have to get over to the Bronx Empire. We have to talk about the evil empire, the Bronx Bombers. And, of course, we're talking about the New York Yankees. I mean, this is an organization that really made no moves at all. I mean, outside of losing Jose Trevino to the IR, they really did not make any splashy moves. They did not make any moves that really moved the needle at all. I mean, is this a New York Yankees team that for the first time in forever are admitting that they're not a playoff contender and they're just focusing on heading into next year?
Absolutely. That's exactly what you get here. Too many injuries. Judge and Stanton, like when they brought that duo together, it was a lot of dreaming and a lot of imaginary and this and that. And those, it's either one is there, the other one's not. He's gone and then he's back. He's back. And, they were kind of building on that. We talked about Herman earlier. Severino, almost 2 years. He's back now. Like, it's just things will not come together for them completely. If they were able to have that full roster, who knows? But it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It's kind of like a soap opera with the Yankees.
Yeah, it's like Bold and the Beautiful or Days of Our Lives. Kind of like a
One life to live, man.
Yeah. Now, with the New York Yankees, it has been, I'm going to say, probably 5 years since we've seen them actually sell in the offseason where they're not buying constantly. But could 2024 be the first time in a long time we're seeing the New York Yankees actually tearing down and starting over this offseason?
I doubt it. That's just it's not in their blood. They're kind of like us as well. I don't think they're going to throw in the towel. They may get rid of, like I said, Stanton could be gone after this year, but it won't be for reasons like, oh man, we're just not feeling it. It's just that sometimes is what they call it. They call it addition by subtraction. So I can see stuff like that, but they're not. They just pay Judge. You know what I mean? So that's not in their blood.
Look, whatever happens with the New York Yankees, they are still the 27-time World Series champions. Kind of like what I say with the Lakers in the NBA, the Canadians in the NHL. These are organizations that doesn't matter how good or bad you are the franchise. You have that legacy. It's cemented, not going anywhere.
Right.
Now, Tampa Bay Rays are trying to cement their own legacy. After all, they have not won a World Series in their 30-plus years being in MLB. Hopefully, they can turn that around. I will say for the Tampa Bay Rays, they did make some good moves. Seville, them getting Sampson, Jackson. These are not moves that are going to win you an offseason or even win you a trade deadline. But what they did is essentially add some stability and some depth to their rotation and to their lineup. So what do you think about Tampa Bay? This is a team that slid in July. They've made some steps back, but they went to the trade deadline and got some good pieces that obviously didn't cost that much because Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, like I said, remember, I was kind of the one saying, like I said, they haven't fallen off, but I knew someone would catch them and they wouldn't stay on that pace. I think, they're a team, what was it, 2 years removed from the World Series. Just if you look on paper, they're formidable, but I was just shocked at what they were doing, the beginning of the year. I think the way they win, they play that old style of baseball. Like they'll play small ball when needed. They'll move guys over. If you look at the lineup, they got some speed, and they got the guy who's the contact hitter, and they got the walks guy. Like if they're one of any team that looks like a traditional baseball team, and I think that is why they're successful. Losing Rasmussen was big, though, and I don't think he's coming back this year. I think that kind of, was part of the slight downfall because he was their second best pitcher. You don't lose your second best pitcher, and it doesn't hurt. So, so that's just what I think about the Devil Rays.
Now, similar to the question I asked about Texas Rangers, Tampa Bay, one of those teams who has never won a World Series. Do you see with them being a small budget, small market team, will they ever do what Kansas City did in 2015? Will they ever do kind of like reaching the top of the mountain and winning a World Series as a small market team? Is that ever going to be possible for them?
No, I think, like I said, they had that opportunity here recently. I don't see it getting any better. I don't see them. Like, even with 64 wins now, like I said, it was more based on how they started. But I don't see that. I think it's still going to slowly trend down, depending on what management does, how they're able to kind of not rebuild, but retool. And they're not the greatest at that. You know what I mean? So I don't see a World Series in their future, not in the near future anyway.
And lastly, on Tampa Bay Rays, before we move over to Toronto, there was a report that came out that a former executive of the Orlando Magic, he is trying to get it. He's trying to build up a group together to try to relocate Tampa Bay, move them down to Orlando. Do you think that there's any actual momentum here? Do you think there's actually going to be anything building on top of that? Them going from Tampa Bay to Orlando, or is it just going to be one of those stories that kind of fizzle
Nah,
out?
yeah, I don't think so. Like I said, man, they've been pretty successful over there, and like I said, we still don't know what they're going to do this year. They may make a run. We don't know. I don't see them moving.
All right.
Nah, no.
Besides the Orlando Rays, I don't really think that has a good ring to it. So
Right? Nah,
yeah.
Not buying it.
The last one is out there in Canada, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. They definitely made some moves. Two of them at the trade deadline, and then one of them was bringing back Ryu, a very good pitcher. He was really solid in the Dodgers. Coming over to Toronto, had that excellent first year. Injuries have affected him the last 2 seasons in Toronto. But yeah, getting Ryu back, getting Paul DeJong from St. Louis, getting Jordan Hicks, 100-mile-an-hour fastball guy himself out there in St. Louis. But when it comes to Toronto Blue Jays, I don't think they've done enough to get to where they need to be. But, man, they have so much talent on that roster. It just feels like they're kind of wasting it.
Yeah, no. Getting Jordan Hicks is the perfect timing because they lost their closer. I think he slides right into that closer role for now.
Romano?
Yeah. And DeJong, he'll be a good super utility guy over there. But like you said, they have a team in place. They just need their players to keep pushing because on the field, they're usually more talented than the other team. So.
Absolutely. And with Toronto, hopefully they could make a World Series push. Anybody who watched this show back in March, you will definitely not let me forget I picked the Toronto Blue Jays to win the 2023 World Series. So I said that back in March. No one will let me forget that. Now, as we are doing our MLB trade deadline review here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. We're here with King Czar for Stay Tuned Live and Talk Your Ish Tuesday. And before we get to the abysmal Central with the AL East and the NL East, did any of those teams really stick out to you in terms of the trade deadline? Like any moves they made that kind of wowed you?
Texas. Texas had the best. I mean, so far we have 2 more divisions to review, but yeah, Texas is my number 1 winner so far.
Texas definitely has done very well. Now, a team that really didn't do much, they kind of made a few pieces, made a few swaps here and there. That was my Chicago Cubs out there in Chicago. I mean, this is a Cubs team that added a reliever, got another reliever from Kansas City, brought back Jameer Candelario from Washington. He was a former prospect in the Cubs system before getting dealt to Detroit in the Justin Wilson trade. Them trading away Sampson to Tampa Bay and giving Velasquez out there to Kansas City. So with the Cubs, they are currently 1 game over 500, 5.5 games back. Do you see a possibility where the Cubs are playing October ball, or is this just a step up in trying to build towards next year?
Yeah, I can see them playing October ball at Wrigley Field during pickup games and stuff like that. But as far as Major League Baseball, absolutely not.
Man, they're going to play October ball. Come on now.
And Suzuki, you're not getting Ohtani. He likes Senga better between the 3 of you guys. Senga and Ohtani are closer than you, Suzuki, so quit reaching out to him. He will be.
Hey, what about Ichiro and Ohtani?
He don't want to go to Seattle, though. So, he wants to go to a big – It has to be a big market, one – and then it has to be one of his best friends. So, you're talking about next year, Ohtani and Senga at the top of that rotation. Let's go. But back to these Chicago Bearlets.
He's going to the Dodgers, but anyway.
No, you know what, man? But kudos to the Cubs this year. They were supposed to be damn near at the bottom. They're fighting. So, kudos to Ian Haps out. He's always been a solid player on that team.
Nico Horner.
Yeah, what's the young rookie, Christopher Morel?
Morel, yeah.
You got the professor who's back. He's
Even
solid.
Miguel Amaya out there in catcher, he's
Right,
actually
right.
gotten to the main level.
So you're going in the right direction, but it won't be in the playoff direction this year, more like one direction, but you're going in the right direction.
Yeah. I will mention, by the way, I think the Blue Jays and the Cubs being in a World Series someday, that would be fantastic. Like putting all my bias into it. I'd love to see a Toronto and Chicago World Series, but anyway.
Good luck with that.
Hey, I can dream. I can definitely dream. Now, the Cincinnati Reds, a team that is battling with Milwaukee right now, trying to win there. But when it comes to Cincinnati, them getting a reliever, really one of the only moves they made, they had sent a couple of relievers down to AAA to make all this stuff happen. But Cincinnati feels like they have a roster, they have the young talent, they know what they have, but surprisingly enough, Cincinnati did not trade for a starting pitcher despite needing starting pitching. So that's the only question mark I have.
Yeah, no, and that's funny you brought that up. I was actually reading, in my fantasy because I have Hunter Green, who's been out for forever and still going to be out for a while. But he's rehabbing right now. They're expecting him back on the, I believe it's the 20th. But they pretty much from sources claim the reason why they didn't get any starting pitching is because they expect Nick Lodolo back, I think, in the next 10 days. And then, like I said, Hunter Green in the next 15, 20 days. So they feel with those two key additions, who are supposed to be two of their top pitchers anyway, they feel they don't no need to go get anybody else.
I mean, is Cincinnati a legit team this year, or is it kind of similar to the reoccurring theme we've been talking about in this show? Or are they just 1 year away?
No, like I said, they have a shot. They may get a wild card. They won't make no serious noise this year. I definitely think next year is when you will start to talk about them potentially, NLCS type scenario.
And then Ellie De La Cruz, one of the best stories in baseball.
McLean is another great.
McLean, Steer as well.
Right.
Yeah. And since we have to talk about their counterpart out there, the Milwaukee Brewers, a team also battling. And pretty much what they did was get some veterans on that team. Carlos Santana, Mark Canha from the New York Mets. Of course, to make room, they had to trade Urias to Boston. They sent Jackson over to Tampa Bay, sent Owen Miller down to Nashville. But when it comes to the Milwaukee Brewers, it feels like they're trying to win that division. I don't think it's going to be enough with the team. I mean, their offense was the problem. Pitching has been excellent up to this point. But with Milwaukee, it just feels like they're kind of in limbo once again. I feel like there's like 5 or 6 teams we mentioned on this show, on this episode, where they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not going to be good enough to win the World Series.
Right. No, I actually, man, Carlos Santana, man, is a fountain of youth guy right there. That dude just won't quit. So having a really good year, I believe he's pushing 40 himself.
He's like 38, yeah.
Yeah. Mark Canha's a reliable outfielder. So I actually think those two additions, because that is what they needed, where they needed bats. And I actually think that little push for them should get them the division.
But would they be a first-round exit, assuming they do make it to the NLDS?
Well, I figure, let's say that they're the 3 seed. You play the worst, so it goes because there's no buys with this format.
No, so the first and 2
first
seeds,
2 get a buy.
bye.
So yes, so then it looks like they would potentially play a team like the Giants or the Reds. They could easily beat those 2 teams.
You know what? For their sake, I hope they do. I mean, Milwaukee's a team that I've had to watch over the years, and their fan base is diehard. I will give credit where credit is due. They have a diehard fan base, the Brew Crew out there in Milwaukee at Miller Park. So I will give credit there. And staying with the NL Central, let's talk about a team that fell off a cliff. I mean, they had a great first month, and then they died for the rest of it, and that's the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, it's a Pittsburgh Pirates team that definitely did not make some right moves. So they decided to tear everything down. Hill and Choi, they go to San Diego. Hedges goes to Texas. Castro goes to Philadelphia. They even sent Bay down to AAA Indianapolis. I mean, when it comes to the Pittsburgh Pirates, they know they're in teardown mode. They know they're in rebuild mode. But for Pittsburgh, I think it was about trying to get as much assets as they could based off of all the people they traded. And good thing they have PNC Park because that's the best thing they have on their entire team. I mean, their stadium's the best part about them. So what do you think about Pittsburgh? I mean, this is a team that just really fell off the cliff ever since May.
Yeah, no, and that was the problem. It was fool's gold. They were not expecting that. They're doing it the right way as well. Very good young roster, young talent. Again, O'Neal Cruz, I think, is going to be one of the best players in baseball if he can stay healthy.
Okay, Brian Hayes.
Yeah, they got a bright future. It was just fool's gold at the beginning, and they realized that, and they didn't jump the gun. Henry Davis, they got a couple of catching prospects that
Henry Davis. I mean, he should be good in first overall pick.
And Andy Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to move Davis to first base, and Rodriguez is going to take over for catcher. So
it would make sense.
Like,
they've done it before.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what the A's are going to do with Soderstrom.
Soderstrom and Langiers.
And they're going to move one of them to first base.
Soderstrom's played first base here in Vegas, so it probably
There
would be.
You go. Yeah.
But yeah, Pittsburgh, I mean, they just definitely sold off assets, so good for them. And then really the last team we have to mention, and this makes my heart grow 10 sizes bigger, and that is the St. Louis Cardinals, the team that was selling finally for the first time in 5,000 years. The Cardinals were selling off assets. I mean, Jack Flaherty, you're gone. You go to Baltimore. Paul DeJong, gone. You're going to Toronto. Yeah, Jordan Montgomery, Chris Stratton, goodbye. You go to Texas. Brendan Donovan, he gets put on IR. Unfortunately, I couldn't put that on there because I ran out of room. But Brandon Donovan, you're gone. You're on IR. So when it comes to St. Louis, they are in teardown mode. And I'm happy to see it. As a Chicago fan, I'm happy to see St. Louis tearing it down. But what about you, Czar? Someone from an outsider's perspective. What do you think about St. Louis? This is kind of a Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of a Boston Celtics, a team that normally is in contention. So for the first time in forever, they're not.
No, and it makes sense. And if you look at their lineup, they still got a hell of a lineup. There's one reason, and this is baseball. You should know this. The only reason that this team fell off, no starting pitching. Like I said, Jack Flaherty was supposed to be the future. He's now, I don't want to say a has-been, but again, no one expects much from him.
He hasn't lived up to the hype. No.
Right. Michaelis is decent, but this team is used to having good Wainwright, who's 40. I believe he's over 40.
Mm-hmm. He is. And Dakota Hudson hasn't lived up either.
Right. You knew at some point these old veterans were going to start to fall. They rode the train as long as they could. All they need to do is a quick retool because you still got Goldschmidt and Arenado. You got maybe that could be the best duo in all of baseball.
They did get Tommy Edman back, by the way.
Right, but I'm saying you got those two guys at 3 and 4. Your leadoff hitter is great from Japan, Newt Bar.
Mm-hmm. Carlson and O'Neal in the outfield.
Yeah, you got to. If you guys can get a couple of starting pitchers, you may Yadier Molina. You rode that as long as you could. He was year after year defying the odds.
I actually think that's the reason why the Cardinals are doing bad this year.
Right, they don't have their captain. That's their captain. The team.
Yeah, they don't have their captain. No.
But they addressed it, and you win. You got Contreras, so he'll be a mainstay there now. You have to get pitching this offseason. They'll be right back.
As a Cubs fan, I hope you are wrong. As a fan of Chicago, I hope you are wrong about the Cardinals. I'll say that. Now, going over to Chicago, we might as well talk about the White Sox, or should we say the Chicago Black Sox, for anybody who wants to make jokes about them. Now, they did get some relief pitching and Luis Patino out there in Tampa Bay. They did get a good prospect in Jake Elder from Miami in the Jake Berger deal, but they mostly sold off assets. Joe Kelly, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito. They sent Middleton over to the Yankees. I mean, the one player I'm surprised didn't get dealt was Tim Anderson, considering all the stuff that's going on with Tim Anderson, I'm really surprised that he wasn't dealt. Maybe this offseason that will change. But with Chicago White Sox, it seems like that honeymoon phase is kind of worn off now. They're not the team that everyone thought they were going to be. That rebuild hasn't worked. Believe in Hahn. It hasn't worked out for the Chicago White Sox. Do you think Rick Hahn's going to be gone after the end of this year? Him being the general manager for almost 8 years now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is like I said, there's different circumstances. And yes, the Mets and Padres are kind of in their own class of disappointment because it's different. This team, let's go 3-4 years ago. They were, like the Astros, like the Orioles, doing it the right way, made all these trades, got Eloy, got Lewis Roberts, got and he fell off. What's the shortstop? No, the second baseman or third baseman. He's supposed to be a stud. Then he got him from the Cubs. Who did they get from the Cubs? You know what I'm talking about?
No, it wasn't Magradol.
Machado. Yeah. And it's like, dude, they were set. They were 3 years from now, dude. All these guys.
They also had Eloy Jimenez.
Right, Giolito, Dylan Cease. There's another picture of him out. Kopech. Like, we're like, this team right here, when they arrive, man, it's on. So that COVID year, they arrived. We're like, okay, now going forward, it's been downhill ever since, bro. This is the most disappointing team with all this talent year after year. They can't even sniff a wild card, let alone, and yeah, I don't know what to do because a lot of these players are still very young.
They most definitely
got to be the front office. You gotta bring in someone else to run this team. Something.
And by the way, before somebody calls me out on it, let me correct myself. Yes, Rick Hahn has been a general manager since the early 2010s. He's been there since the early 2000s in terms of a management position, in terms of being an executive for the White Sox. So no, it hasn't been 8 years for Rick Hahn. I think it's actually been 11, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's actually been a long time that Rick Hahn has been the general manager. Kenny Williams, obviously, the executive vice president, the guy at the top. So White Sox, I wouldn't be surprised if they start tearing that down, start rebuilding that. Cleveland Guardians is a weird team to talk about because they're 1 game under 500. So there should be some expectations here. But man, they really did nothing. Not only did they release Gene Segura, not only did they trade Josh Bell, they traded Ahmed Rosario, but what they got back was really underwhelming. Noah Syndergaard, he's way past his prime. We already talked about him. Getting Watson, he's a solid up-and-coming shortstop. But, man, for a team like Cleveland, it's only a game and a half back from Minnesota. It's really surprising to see him do little of nothing at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I just still can't believe it. Like, the division winner may be under 500. So I think this is how behind closed doors, they're like, dude, this is anybody's division. Like, we don't need to, mess up our farm system. Or we're already the youngest team probably in baseball. I know last year they were the youngest team ever to make the playoffs. So
they most definitely were. Yeah, you got McKenzie.
I kind of can see that. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of get it. You know what I mean? Because you don't need much to win this division. And on paper, they should still win this division.
Mm-hmm. And moving over to Detroit, I mean, this is a team that made some moves. It wasn't great, but it was some moves. Getting Leonard from the Dodgers. Of course, Lorenzen's gone. But this team, really all they did was just kind of reshuffle some things. We talked about the Rodriguez, him blocking the trade to LA earlier in the show. But surprisingly enough, Czar, the Tigers are like, 5.5 games out, 6.5 games out?
Right. That's what's
they're
crazy.
Still in contention, but they only made 1 or 2 moves.
Right. Well, I mean, again, they're not expecting much. Obviously with them, it was kind of fool's gold. They went and paid Baez all this money, and some of it was hair scratcher because it's like this team is nowhere near ready to compete. And I think they're confused. Like at times they're like, okay, shit, do we do this? Do we go get that? You know, Eduardo does this. So it's like 5.5 games for them is still a lot because they're not that good. So even the fact that they have a shot, I get it, but they're not going to be. Again, you got professionals. They're not going to look at that fool's gold and be like, we're 5.5 out. Let's go get Scherzer or let's go get, you know what I'm saying? That's not going to happen.
I will mention, because it did happen recently, Miguel Cabrera, his last time going to Miami, he got a standing ovation at his final at-bat playing in Miami. That was a nice touch, though. I will give props to Miami. That was a nice touch, giving him a standing ovation during his final at-bat at Marlins Park.
Yeah, that was dope. I like that.
Yeah. Now, going over to Kansas City, one of the worst teams in all of baseball, pretty much all they did was just nothing. I mean, I really feel like this could be a 2-minute segment. They really didn't do much.
Yeah. Who's next?
I said for Kansas City Royals, yeah.
Nah, you didn't get it. You said it was a 2-minute segment.
Yeah, 2-minute segment.
It was going to be 2 seconds. So I was like, who's next? Yeah, you got them in Oakland, man. You're battling for the worst. Mm-hmm. I mean, at least I think Oakland has a little bit better farm system, a little bit better young talent. Obviously, maybe moving to a better location. So Kansas City, man, hey, sorry to the fans out there, but times are rough.
And you know what? Unlike the past, just because you have the worst record doesn't mean you have the number 1 pick anymore. There's a draft lottery. So.
Right.
And speaking of a team that's not worrying about a draft lottery, they're trying to win their division despite being only 1 game over 500, and that's the Minnesota Twins. And once again, they really didn't do much except activate Byron Buxton. They activated Jorge Polanco from the IR. Dylan Florio, they got him from Miami. They traded Lopez to Miami to get the deal done. But with Minnesota, it just feels like they were just meh. Like there really wasn't anything going on. It was just mid. Is that kind of how you feel about Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm waiting to get an email. I'm trying to see if we can get a little realignment. I'm trying to get the Mets over into the AL Central. You know what I'm saying? So we're trying to figure out how to boost the ratings a little bit more.
I mean, the Cubs are trying to do the same thing. We're trying to get them on the phone, trying to.
So you know how the NFL does the flex schedule now, and
they do the flex stuff
around. So we're trying to do flex alignment second half. You know what I mean? So that way we can get something going. But no, I love Byron Buxton though, so that's always going to be a big help addition back to the lineup. And Polanco's a pretty solid player as well. So just the trades or whatever. That means nothing to me, but just getting your players back, 2 of your better players back should help. I still like Cleveland, I think. But again, to you Royals fans, times are rough.
Now, I will say I will pick Cleveland, but I would not be surprised if it's like 83 and 79, 82 and 80. I don't think it's going to be under 500, but it's not going to be a great record.
Right.
Now, that is ending our MLB trade deadline review here on the Sports Angle. And since I have you here, we have to get to an hour and 30. I do want to ask you a question because we have talked about this before off the air and on other places. We have never done it on the Sports Angle. If you had to rank, in your opinion, the 5 greatest NFL players of all time, if you had to give your list of who you think the 5 best NFL players to ever play the game were, Czar, who would it be and why?
5 greatest NFL. I put them in order, or just you want 5 names?
Just 5. Just 5. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go. Jim Brown is on that list. Jerry Rice is on that list. Tom Brady is on that list. Lawrence Taylor is on that list. Deion Sanders is on that list.
And funny enough, Czar, we are 4 for 5. There's only one person I disagree with, and I think knowing me long enough,
it better not be Deion.
Yeah, you already know who it is based off.
It better not be Deion.
Of course, it's the guy who made it to the World Series with the Atlanta Braves. Now, here's what my list would be. Of course, mine is in order. Yours was just, what your top 5 was. To me, the greatest football player of all time, Jim Brown. I mean, what he did for the NFL, he was a pioneer. He was somebody who definitely changed the game for the right way. I'm always going to have respect for Jim Brown, and considering what he did as a player and the fact that he was an all-pro all but 1 year he was in the NFL, and he was the rushing leader for all but 1 year he was in the NFL. I think Jim Brown, he is the greatest football player of all time. Number 2, I got to go with Jerry Rice. I mean, what he did in San Francisco, he was unstoppable. I mean, he was a player that definitely changed the position at wide receiver. He made the receiver position into what it is today, the way it is performed, the way it's played. Jerry Rice has a lot to do with that. He was really a trendsetter. He was somebody that really helped elevate the game and progress the game into what it is now. So Jerry Rice, I have him at 2. At 3, I got to go with the most dominant defensive player of all time, and that is Lawrence Taylor. I mean, this is a guy when he got added as a rookie, he made the game better as a result. He definitely changed the NFL for the better, and he is one of the most impactful players to ever play the game. Number 4 would be Reggie White. I always will have the utmost respect for Reggie White, regardless if he was in Green Bay, Carolina, Philadelphia, regardless of where he was somebody who made an impact and someone who was dominant at his position. When he lined up, you knew you had to be there. And then at number 5, I have the greatest quarterback of all time, and that is Tom Brady. All of those Super Bowl rings definitely have to count when it comes to Tom Brady. Now, I will say when it comes to Deion Sanders, I think he's top 10. I mean, I'm not going to give him that much disrespect. I'm going to say, no, he's not a top 10 player. No, he's top 10, but I just don't think he's top 5. That's all.
Got it. All right.
And
you can't argue with the Minister of Defense.
Minister of Defense. And since we're here in Las Vegas and we're starting to kind of wrap up the show a little bit, I have to really ask this question. When it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders, they won 6 games last year. They have a new quarterback. The running back situation's iffy. And the offensive line really hasn't improved as much as what it did last year. But do you expect the Raiders to turn it around at all this year, or is it going to be years down the road until we see the Las Vegas Raiders being any good?
I have no clue when they're going to turn it around. It definitely ain't going to be this year. I mean, they have what they have. So my expectations this year is a 4th place finish and arguably the toughest division. NFC East, AFC West, probably the top 2 divisions in my opinion. I look for 4 or 5 wins. I don't think they'll turn it around. So not with the roster that's on at hand, unfortunately.
So would that be a top 5 pick then? If it's 4 or 5 wins, would that be a top 5 pick?
Yeah.
All right. And since people keep mentioning quarterbacks, Caleb Williams from USC, one of the best quarterbacks coming out of college football. USC quarterbacks, they're a touchy subject. Some people love USC quarterbacks. Some people hate USC quarterbacks. There are some people who don't think they're good. There's some people who think they are good. What about you? I mean, Caleb Williams, do you expect him to be the kind of this next level guy in the NFL, or is he going to be kind of like a bust like we've seen with USC quarterbacks in the past?
Yeah, no, I expect him to have a very good, this will be his final year of college, and he'll come out. I'm not a fan of USC quarterbacks. I'm not a fan of my predictions. I don't think he'll be a franchise quarterback. Does that mean he'll be, because there's different levels to this. Will he be, who was the number 1? I mean, will he be Tom Marinovich? Will he be Jamarcus Russell? Or will he be Vince Young,
Matt Leinart?
Probably more on the Vince. No, I don't think he'll be that good in the NFL. I'm not buying it. And yes, I don't like USC quarterbacks.
And I will say for the Raiders, and I have mentioned this on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio before, I think bringing in a former Raider and kind of changing up the style of play, going away from the Patriots way and kind of becoming the Raiders again, I think that's how you would turn it around with the Raiders. You have to bring in former people who actually understand the culture and understand what the Raiders are all about. I think that's just my opinion, what they need to do to turn it around.
Right.
And last part, because we're talking about the NFL, who do you have winning the Super Bowl in 2023, depending on, this might be the last time, we'll be talking about this before the season kicks off. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But when it comes to Super Bowl in 2023, who do you have and why, Czar?
I don't know. My Super Bowl is the Cowboys and Bengals. I don't know who I got winning yet.
Cowboys and Bengals.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go 0 for 2 on you. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Now, I will say, Czar, I always appreciate you coming on the show. It's always a great time to have you on here. Take about a minute. Shout out all your social medias. Tell everybody where they can find you and what shows you are working on.
Yeah, no, definitely. Please like, share, follow, stay tuned live _. We have a great show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Follow Ignorant Thinkers podcast, and that's Ignorant Thinkers with 1 T. We also have a great show on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so they're back to back. We have some football shows and stuff coming up. The Buck Flair show should be returning, I believe, Friday nights. So that's also part of Ignorant Thinkers. You catch me with Ian, or you'll see Ian with us on Stay Tuned Live. But yeah, mainly Stay Tuned Live and Ignorant Thinkers. Talk Yearish Tuesdays.
And absolutely, and I do have to mention that this upcoming Friday, I'm going to be having Josh Bailey from Stay Tuned Live. He'll be here on the Sports Angle for our normal show we do on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be a fantastic show with Josh Bailey from Stay Tuned Live. So stay tuned for that. And also go to our social medias at Sports Angle on PR and follow me at Ian Rickelli 18. And I also want to mention for PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, go to their website, PRConnectionsRadio.com. Go to our social medias at PRConnectionsRadio. And I will also say to Guy Dawson, to Dana, and to everybody who is part of PR Connections Radio, they do a fantastic job here, and they obviously have my respect. So go watch all the shows on PRConnectionsRadio.com and go to sportsangle.com to check out all the articles and all of the videos that we have on there. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we upload every single episode to our website, thesportsangle.com. So if you want to watch all of our shows, go do that. And check out our audio links on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all the platforms we have on there. So until next time, continue watching sports. Go support your local sports teams and have a great rest of your day.
PR Connections Radio presents